Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Barriers and Boundaries Resilience Leadership Podcast. And today I'm very excited for my guest, Gabriella Bitunė. As someone that is PMP certified, I have a master's in program management. This is the language that I love to speak. And on the show, I talk about organizational resilience. And I really, truly believe an organization that has good processes, that understands performance domains and these areas of focus, is adapting to AI, all the things that we speak in the PMP world, the PMI language, I really believe contributes to a healthy organization, in addition to the healthy employees that I try to focus on as well. So Gabriella, how are you? I want to just give you the floor to kind of tell us about yourself, and then we can chop it up.
Thank you so much, B. It's really nice and to be welcomed on your podcast. I'm really happy to participate because for me, resilience, as you mentioned before, is really important topic, and I'm really happy that I have to show this. We put that in PMBOK 8 as the concept that is recurring. Actually, I'm one of the core team members, core development team members for PMBOK 8. Of course, I'm a volunteer. Besides that, I've been working within project management field for as long as I remember. Basically, it's last 13, 14 years. I started within conferences and events. Then I switched to clinical research. After that, I transitioned to road maintenance. After that, it was energy industry, following by real estate, also manufacturing, and now I'm back into energy industry. But through that whole period, PMBOK was by my side. Project management was by my side because I worked as a project manager, head of PMO, project director, head of project management director, and etc. And it was like a source for inspiration and the menu. So I'm really happy that I was able to participate, to volunteer on that exercise. If I could tell that took almost 2 years. Basically, me and other teammates of 12 people, we were working on PMBOK from beginning of 24, and we were led by amazing Jesse Pavel and other PMI folks. Yeah, so also am myself certified also in portfolio management, risk management that you already mentioned, also as construction professional from PMI, and also have like Scrum Master and product owner certifications. But so basically projects are all my life and I really like to do that.
I love it. And the list of credentials is very impressive. And congrats to you for that. And just so the audience and those listening or watching understand the magnitude of being, a development team member for the eighth edition of the PMBOK. It is the go-to source for clarity and instruction and having what I call healthy boundaries of what it means to be a project manager. It's such a massive ordeal to engage in updating this, book of knowledge. And congrats on that. You talk about the different fields that you were in, the events to clinicals and even construction. What I'm hearing is this allows you to have a healthy, proper framework for no matter what you engage in. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, so basically what I really liked about project management and especially what we also done with this amazing opportunity while developing PMBOK, we are no longer focusing only on waterfall project management or agile project management. We not try to put those two frameworks against each other because usually in real life, not in theory, they're working hand in hand. And mostly what I personally believe and I personally experience, lots of projects actually are hybrid. When you have like, for instance, stages like planned in advance, and then you are doing actually the work within the team, maybe in some sprints, using some Scrum methodology and things like that. So from my personal perspective, going through those different industries, I noticed that basically, yeah, this is mostly how we work in real life. And what I was really happy about that we and the whole team that worked on this project, because it's a project as well. And actually we used the sprints to develop this PMBOK. because we were working in like 2 week iterations. So basically what we noticed, and the main point was that you have to build a, as you mentioned, a bible and the menu for the folks and industries that are different, worldwide, and you don't have to make like something so descriptive, and that you wouldn't be able to adjust. So basically I think tailoring is also important part of this PMBOK as well. And in real life, it's always like that.
Yeah, and I noticed in like the tailoring aspect of it and the adaptive with the predictive and the hybrid discussion in the PMBOK, a lot of the tailoring aspects that is discussed in the PMBOK was just right on point. I like the emphasis in the standards side with the holistic integration mindset. A mindset was a huge part of this, I felt like, and the ability to think in terms of how is what I'm doing with this project fit into like the big program, so to speak. And yeah, you mind speaking some to the mindset
Yeah.
aspect of the new PMBOK?
Yeah, of course. Because with the whole team that we met like first time at the beginning of 24, first of all, we started to work on the principles because we didn't know each other actually. People were coming from all around the world. Me personally from Lithuania. There were also people from Europe, like from Italy, Czech Republic, people from Honduras, United States, from UK, from Iran, and like totally different, experiences, countries, and cultures. And we started to work on principles. And what we all had in common, and it was really funny, that we all spoke about systems thinking. And basically to be holistic, it's about system thinking. And it's the same with projects, even with portfolio management, not only with the project itself, like isolated project. Because if you switch something on one side, usually it's like dominoes, they're like making some impact or influence at other projects or resources or operations. So I was really happy that we quite early come up with this concept of holistic view. And I think through the whole book we are still mentioning that, even like we created like new naming, like focus areas. And for us it's important that people can come back and assess what is the impact for the project, with some changes, with some delays, even like with important team members leaving, the project. And I think that's really important. And as your podcast is related to risk and resilience, organizational resilience, I think this is the key for resilience. Because if you see things holistically and you know what's going on from strategic, operational, tactical level, and not being focused only like siloed on your like department or like division, so basically then you could be resilient and bounce back as a team, within the projects, even within the operations. So I think that's really important to have, this focus and understanding that you're impacting others and others are impacting you. Same with stakeholders, if you're having like, even as you mentioned, construction project in Las Vegas, I think there are lots of casinos, other places, maybe schools that might be impacted. Maybe their operations could be changed or disrupted, by the construction. So you always have to keep in mind like broader view, and you cannot be like siloed or focused only on your project or like task like that.
And the value focus and what is your say department doing? Is it adding value to the holistic approach? And I I was in the Navy for 25 years. I was part of a community the last 10 years that I just consistently didn't see integrated and adding value the way that other departments were. And it was very frustrating, and it was hard to kind of beat that drum over and over, and just didn't really feel like it got heard. So I wanted to just highlight that because the value focus is building, sustaining, but also advancing. Just I was very impressed with how this came together entirely. What excited you like most? Like what aspect of the PMBOK working on this did you feel like you were most excited to get into?
So maybe like two topics. First topic
Mhm.
was of course like sustainability, because I checked the previous versions, because we we're basing the PMBOK by previous standards, for example, risk management, portfolio, program management standard, of course, the previous PMBOK versions as a reference materials. But what I saw and what I couldn't explain like in detail was sustainability. And I'm not talking only like environmental sustainability, but also talking about social, even good governance, like how the companies are nicely governed or like economical aspects that should be put into mind. And I'm really happy that we had the chance to wrote like a separate, completely separate principle that was around sustainability, and we could put like even examples coming from the industries for organizations. So this was the first thing, because me personally doing also PhD on project management, sustainability, also digitization, this really works for me personally, and I'm really happy about it because it's a necessity nowadays, not like novel topic or something. Another thing that was really exciting for me, and it's really small thing, but I saw also discussions via LinkedIn what people were like saying about new PMBOK guides, and most people were mentioning the change what is the project and what is the project management. So I was super happy that we no longer focus, only on KPIs, building something or creating something or developing something just for the sake of targeting the KPIs, but actually we think about the value. We think that as a project managers, as good project management should meet or exceed expectations of our stakeholders. And also we added additional comments that of course we don't speak about scope creep, that you're going to do now everything, for everyone to be happy. But I was really excited about that because as far as I'm concerned, for several decades, this concept wasn't changed, and now we were able to change it. And also, as not a native speaker, like it might sound like really funny, as Lithuanian, not being, able to articulate myself like clearly in English, for me it was really nice that we changed the word from endeavor to initiative when it comes to what means project, because usually in my spoken language I don't use English really often, but if I don't use this kind of words. So we also aimed PMBOK to be easier to understand, not only to native speakers as you, EB, or other folks from US or different countries, but also the people that are even taking, PMP. And for me personally, when I took those certifications, it was quite, sometimes I had to spend more time not only about understanding the concepts, what's about PMBOK and how to get certified, but also to memorize the translation, of certain words. So make language more, like suitable and for different cultures and languages. Because, for example, Lithuania, as a small country with 2.8 million, we don't expect PMBOK to be translated, probably that would never happen. But to have this chance to make the language easier, so for me, it sounded like really good. So actually, sorry, I told three things instead of two.
How dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you?
you have to erase that. You have to said that, Yeah.
It sounds like translating it might be a project for you.
Not sure if that might ever happen, but yeah, if someone decides that, I would be happy. Of course, I'm not a professional translator or anything.
You mentioned scope creep a little bit. Just a side note, that was my Halloween costume. I dressed up as a scary monster, and I had like one more task. Here's a change request. Posted notes all over. It's a good PMP Halloween costume. Is scope creep.
Posted that via LinkedIn or somewhere, you should, because that would be really funny, and I definitely would love that, to see that, because I know this meme. I even use it like for students, or like when I'm giving lectures on project management. I always use that picture because otherwise for people it's not easy to understand what is scope creep, But if you like can you do something more, please? Yeah.
Here's a change request. I know it's the 15th one, but
Yeah.
when you were saying, when you're kind of expressing that inclusive nature of thinking about language, thinking about the definitions and the translations, what came to mind is actually PMI kind of adhering to its own standards of being accountable. That's a very proactive measure of being so this whole process just was very inclusive of the standards of PMI and the PMBOK already, is kind of what I'm hearing a lot of. And I had a college professor, and he always preached at us, define your terms, define your terms, define your terms. If everyone's on the same page with what words mean, then it's going to create clarity, it's increased communication, and just make things more efficient and effective.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with your point because when we came just to meet our other teammates of dev team, we had the research that was already carried by PMI, and they had like so many suggestions from the community that the community, for instance, didn't like in the previous version, what was lacking, what should be added. So basically, it was a background that we worked on. And also during the process, we also had like other volunteers that we haven't met until we went to Phoenix to Global PMI Summit like 2 weeks ago. So there was, I think, 12 also people that were like reviewing the things that we done. And once we finished with like the first part of standard, later on with the guy, we also made like public comments. So PMI posted it for people just to be able to comment it publicly. And basically, we as dev team, we received all those comments, and actually we divided by ourselves like in small groups of 2 or 3 just to review each comment, each line by line. So we had like actually hundreds of lines of people commenting, and for us to like defer or reject these kind of comments, we actually had to put some rationale. So basically, we included also things that people suggested. And if you see the book, like, I don't know, in like the previous versions, I didn't check, but like the extensive list of people working on this version is insane. Like, I think it's like maybe, I don't know. They mentioned like I don't know if you have seen
Yeah.
so many people like working and their names.
Mhm.
And I'm so happy that, you know, like everyone is like included and mentioned. So that's like really community created standard. Like they use lots of pages to, you know, just to mention people that were working on PMBOK. So yeah, I think what was good with this version that people had saying what they wanted, what they were lacking, and PMI actually listened. And we had like really huge open vision that we as a dev team and what people suggested that what could be included, you know.
So, what do you hope, or I don't know if you can speak on behalf of the development team, but was there something discussed along the lines of, here's what we want to inspire in project managers, or here's what we want this to motivate project managers to do? Was there any discussion along the lines of the mindset of the reader? UX design comes to mind, the user experience type stuff, and then also kind of following that was uh, the challenge to change. I feel like this was one of those changes that people were waiting for, as opposed to getting a lot of resistance.
Yeah, basically what we did at the beginning, actually we started to count the years and we understood that like next year, if I'm not wrong, and it will be 30 years since the first like official edition was, I think it wasn't called like first edition, but when it was released. So our aim was to, how to say, to honor what was did by the community in the previous version, because the job was amazing, but also to be mindful and also to be also repetitive when it comes to the number of pages. And when you mentioned UX, that was the first thing, because what I thought, because we actually checked how many pages the first second edition had, and it was less than 200 pages. And basically what we aimed to make PMBOK as consistent as possible, not to repeat the things that are like common sense, you know, and to be mindful, because the readers, you know, nowadays with, you know, all the social media, usually they don't have like so much time and like, you know, so much concentration, you know, to read a book of like 1000 or 200 pages. So we really wanted to make it like as concise and usable as possible. That's why what also we wanted to do for like the users, the readers, to have all the inputs, outputs, tools, and techniques listed at the end, Because if there are people that know those concepts and they just want to go through the first part of the book, the standard and the guide, that they could just read the text and see the graphs, the pictures, the figures, and not spend time so much on reading the definitions. So the definitions, if you can see, they're almost at the end before the annexes. So basically, I think that was also our suggestion, how to make it more, easier for folks to read it, like normal book.
I think y'all did a wonderful, wonderful job on that, being able to capture what you needed to capture and be concise, but challenging the mindset, the competency of our project managers. I kind of go back to the beginning of that holistic, integrated mindset and approach. Again, just sounds like something that you were expressing what you wanted project managers to do just by how this all came together. Maybe transitioning a little bit to more about you specifically. I mean, you have a lot of experience and credentials and exposure to the PM world. What are some things that you like to focus on when you're talking PM, when you're talking project management?
Yeah.
What are things that you feel like you wish was understood more,
Mhm.
or you wish was highlighted more in maybe some of your engagements with other PMs?
Yeah, actually, today I had like some meetings with project manager from another company, and basically they're just building their project management, like frameworks and processes and things. And at first they wanted, just asked us to share our processes, our methodologies, our, templates and things like that. But first of all, I wanted to listen to her, what kind of experience she's bringing as new project manager coming to that new company, and also what kind of projects they're doing. And during the discussion, it felt more that actually they're doing product management instead of project management. And I asked her, even though I shared some templates, some documentation, to be really mindful that she doesn't need everything, and I really like to keep like lean mindset. Just use the things that you actually need and that you are going to use, because otherwise it's such a waste, of project managers' time, who could actually focus on quality, making better relations with stakeholders, contractors, if there are any, instead of filling the templates. Like I even had like my current project managers that work for me coming from different companies, backgrounds, and saying that their biggest nightmare was to fill so many Excel sheets every month, to fill the capex, the budget, the cost, also to fill the same information in different like sheets, different document, instead of using that one and integrating within the system. So what I always try to do when I come to the company, I try and understand how many data points, actually data entry points, we have as like project managers, and how to minimize this and use like new tools, like not even new tools, there are basic tools nowadays, using like Power BI, to use some systems that the project managers could enter information like once, and the people that needs that information, that they could use that, instead of like gathering so many documents. So I think that's really important. And of course, it's really important to listen to people, what kind of projects they are doing, because not every project is the same, not every template is really necessary. Sometimes even the level of project management doesn't need to be the highest if the company is doing such small, operational like kind of work or tasks. Maybe they just need some like basic tools, like really small like planner for task management, like some like baseline, and that's it. If you are having like mega projects, something like really complex with lots of contractors, of course, then you need a lot of system integrations, things like that. But you always have to measure how many hours you're going to spend actually managing the project, and how many hours you're going to spend on writing documentation and like filling the form. So for me, that's really important. And I think I sound a bit heretic coming from the PMO, standpoints. But I think we always have to keep in mind that people are actually working, and not robots. Maybe for robots, like for AI, it would be interesting to do so many repetitive things. But these are project managers. Usually, people are up for challenge. They are like ready to do some huge things, and we should just let them. Just let them do their stuff. Instead of filling so many forms to do the same things. Yeah.
Yeah, active listening is a huge component of being a good leader too, and I like that you mentioned that. Another couple of questions I want to ask: how do you handle change, and how do you grow professionally?
Yeah, so with change management is quite funny because I usually do stuff and think and have like some retrospectives with team or even like in my mind only afterwards, not before the change. I try to, not to focus too much on the details, focus on the main things, do that and then reflect. So for me, change is like a bit awkward process, not like for normal human beings. People are like planning stuff, like how they're going to do that, what kind of risk that might occur, But usually I like just to do stuff, and for me it's easier. So for me, change, even like changing organization, changing roles, changing even industries, or working on several different projects or managing like portfolio. Current company that I work with, we have around 80 different projects that we have within our portfolio. So for me, it's exciting because it's not a like static work. So for me, like change management difference, of course, there are always like in every change, people are sometimes resistant. You have to prove why this future state instead of current state is better and what you need to do to go there to the future state. But in general, I'm really in favor of change. And I think that's like the main wheel, for our lives and our world. And sorry, what was the second question?
Oh, just asking how you grow professionally, like how you develop your own skill set. But I wanted to touch on that real quick. Having a military background, we're used to moving to a new duty station every few years, where new people are always coming and going in our organization. Change is just constant. We understand that line of change is the only permanent thing in life very well. And I think a lot of listeners maybe haven't moved around a lot, haven't changed jobs a lot. Change can be kind of a scary thing. There's always going to be change, and it's just the adaptability that comes to mind a lot when you were speaking was being an analyst of sorts to your situation, thinking contextually. How do you analyze situations and just gain clarity in the midst of those change? That's a big component of that, but yeah, I was also curious about how do you grow professionally?
Yeah, when it comes to professional grow, of course, when you have to put yourself like into new industry, for instance, you have to learn so many like new things. I remember when I started to work in clinical research, there were like different sponsor, big pharma companies like, like Johnson Johnson, like Pfizer, things like that. So basically what I did at first, I read lots of about the product and the project. I'm sometimes quite geeky when it comes, to the specifics or technical specifications if they're already in place about the project. So I think not being like focused only on management part, but also try to understand a little bit. I'm not saying that I'm going to become an engineer or something like that, but just to try understand like the main keywords that the technical folks are using, the main concepts, what are you basically doing. Also, I really like to go when I work on projects, I really like to go on sites to see similar projects, how they're like built actually, how they work, if it is like IT system, or if we don't have it in our like country, maybe to go somewhere or just ask someone from different company to share their experience via Teams or different kind of virtual tools, and basically just to experience how it looks like, not only theoretically, but practically. So I think this helps a lot to switch and try to understand a bit technical details, because then it comes to stakeholder management, and if you know how to speak their own language, even like engineering language, maybe you won't understand everything, but using some key terms, I think it makes people to appreciate you more, and don't think that you're just a project manager that is only focusing, on like management stuff, like I don't know, resources, stakeholders, communication, and that's it. No technical parts.
You go in, you just try to understand the context, understand the world that you're working in, gaining those competencies, not going like too in depth too quickly, which I've seen a lot of leaders make mistakes in the sense of they come into a new place and they try to make changes too quickly before actually understanding like what's happened, who are the people, the stakeholders,
Mhm.
that kind of engagement there. Is that kind of along the lines of like, hey, just slow down, but just get your bearings, understand your context, your world that you're in now?
Yeah, basically you have to analyze the situation as you mentioned, try to understand the people. And what coming back to PMBOK again, sorry for mentioning it, but I really liked a lot because instead of, like leading resources, managing resources, or controlling resources, we switched the language to lead the team. So for the team to follow, I think, as you mentioned also before, you have to be active listener. You have to care about the people that you're working with, even sometimes how they feel, because maybe they don't do some tasks just because they are having some issues. Of course we are not going to care like about like everyone like every time, because we won't
Sure.
do our job. But basically, at least to listen what are like in between the lines, and maybe people have like so many ideas that they could suggest. And as a manager, you might think that you know everything, but I think that's impossible. So basically, your team usually has like more in detail experience. They could provide like amazing suggestions. So basically, what you have to do, just listen and try to figure out which one is like the better option.
Yeah, I my tagline of sorts for like this episode or this podcast, I believe that healthy employees create healthy organizations. Now that requires good leadership, that requires a good manager that is engaged. Take care of the people, they're going to take care of the work. And being able to showcase that with the way that the PMBOK expresses that, leading teams, it's so good, so good. It highlights culture, the organizational culture as the expectations from leadership, whereas the climate is the experiences. And sometimes there's disparity between what leadership expects and what people are experiencing. How do you engage in training a staff like that to look for
Mhm.
the disparity?
Yeah, so basically coming back from like previous like experience, that I'm not happy about that what I did wrong and what I try not to do anymore or try to do less is to come to the organization with having your flag, in hands, that I'm going to change everything, and I know the best, that thing, kind of things. So instead of that, I think it's better, as you mentioned before, analyzed, understand the culture that people are working with. What are, like the main underlines, things like that aren't written, because you can have the best procedure, process, documentation written. But if people don't believe in it, you can just put it in, like in the recycle bin, or like in a bin, or somewhere else. So first of all, you have to, even though you are having the best intentions, you have to at least a little bit adapt to the culture of the organization. For example, if the organization is really like strict with lots of rules, I guess the same in naval, right? Or in military, or if the organization is like really agile, like really fast. For instance, if there is like some startup, probably you won't be like control freak there. So you have to keep in mind that usually you will be the one person against everyone. So you have to understand. But what also is really important for me, also to pay attention to people, that there are like some standards, or like to have like emotional intelligence, and to speak to people that there are things that shouldn't be, in our organization, or that is not like, let's say, for instance, like unethical behavior, corruption, things like that. You also have like to educate people. And if you have like this kind of examples, you have to help people to understand that it's not okay, and what we can learn from that we wouldn't repeat that. And of course, I try to do that like face to face when I speak to people, to say things that are not really maybe good, what we have to learn about. And I think that's important.
And that kind of highlights something I've seen a lot. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot where you might have subordinate personnel that has more competency than the leader, but that becomes threatening to the leader's insecurity. I've seen that just create bad culture, bad engagements, and I try to encourage as much as I can. If you're not as competent as someone that is subordinate to you, tap into that strength. Bring them to a point where they can use that strength more. That's only going to make you look better. And not that status is everything, but just that's the job of the leader, is to get the most out of their employees, but also free them up to use their strengths even more. And it's just a shame of how much insecurity hinders actual growth in an organization. So thanks for touching on that.
Yeah, totally agree, because you can have the best business acumen, like skills like that, but if you don't have like power skills, because we rename them instead of soft skills, then you might have trouble, because you won't use the active listening, things like that, and you might be jealous of your employees, which is not good, because instead of working together, you are working against each other, and it's not getting you anywhere, and eventually people can leave the company or organization, and no one is like mandated, to stay in terrible working conditions, or like things that are not satisfying to them, because there are like so many opportunities nowadays for people to work worldwide, like work remotely, hybrid, and things like that. So I think it's really necessary also for the managers, if you see like this kind of situations, even like in different teams, to speak about that is not okay, and yeah, not be afraid of your employees, because he might be like billionaire one day, and he might hire you, and you will be happy about that.
Yeah, yeah, and just highlighting like how important it is to just maintain good relationships, professional networking, professional relationships. Final question for you. I know I kept you up pretty late. Are you in Lithuania right now? Is that
Yes.
where you? Okay,
Yes.
so I know it's getting late there for you. It's my day's getting started here, but a new manager, a new leader, and they want to develop project management skills for themselves. They want to get certified in the near future. What's your advice to someone just starting out?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's important to understand if this work is actually good for you, because I believe that people can learn lots of stuff, but also they have like natural talents. For example, if you are like really nicely organized, then project management might be your like lovable thing. If you're like a bit chaotic, or like me, or like really into invention, so maybe you should go, to more innovation. Or if you like repetitive things, maybe you should do like some more operational work. So I think at first we should all understand that project management might not be for everyone, and you shouldn't, like get certified just for the sake of certification. So I think it's the best to understand what is really making you happy as a person, and what keeps you, like wake up Monday morning, if you start your work on morning and you go to the work like really happy. If you are like up for this kind of work, and if you want to get certified, of course it's important to understand that you might have like amazing qualities, but things like PMBOK, different standards, they're created by people that had like uh finished, completed successfully, maybe not so successfully, so many projects. And these books, these materials are having, the knowledge and their experience from the whole community. So by trying, to answer the questions, if you're having passing the test, you should try to answer the questions from the mindset that the book that you are learning from are giving, because you can have your own opinion, what's the best, but usually the standards are standards, because this is like specific behavior that should be followed, like if there are like some process. So I think the best answer is to try to understand the standard, the mindset, what the standard is saying to you, and try to answer from the standpoint of standard, like try to
Yeah.
learn that and focus on that, not on, like your personal experience. Of course, you can share that within job interviews, like talking with your colleagues, but when it comes to exam, usually, they're quite straightforward. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not into any group with certifications of PMI or other companies or like organizations. But I think the new PMP standard that's going to be renewed in July next year, it's going to have like different kind of type of questions, not only, like 4 answers and, like one correct answer, but I think there are going to be even case studies. I read somewhere. So I think like it might get interesting because I passed PMP quite a long time ago, like I think 2018. So it was quite usual certification exam. So now maybe if there's going to be case studies, multiple answers, it might be different. But try to answer from the standard viewpoint.
Yeah. Now, I just want to capture how important what you just said was, and just really understanding that PNP may not be for everyone. Really being able to have self-awareness, understanding like what motivates you. Is it those routine operational type stuff that you do repetitively? I feel like that's solid gold truth nuggets that you just offered listeners and viewers. So thank you for that. I mean, the whole conversation has been wonderful. But it did bring up, when you talked about case studies at the end, it reminded me, I love the addition. I don't know if it's an addition or if I just didn't notice it before, but like there was like this piece of writing where it's like, okay, we talked about this. Now think about how this would impact. You talked about you're working with an NGO, and all of a sudden, hey, maybe you can apply for a grant. And there was like that example in the PMBOK, and I'm just like, yes, think bigger than just the material. How does this actually impact your perspective? How does it impact your context, and how can you add more value? And it just keeps building and building on that. So again, that's why I think it was just job well done. Bravo. And thank you for your time just coming on the podcast today. How do listeners, viewers learn more about you? How do they stay up to date with you?
You are free, to connect, follow me on LinkedIn. I think maybe after the podcast would be like published, you can
I can
suggest
add the links. Yeah.
the links. So no worries, I'm open for that. I really believe, like in karma, or I don't know how to call it. Like I'm not a Buddhist or anything, but like I believe if you do good stuff to people, if you volunteer, for PMBOK, like none of us got like any money for that. We were doing our jobs, But if you help people, that might help you one day, And if I wouldn't be doing that stuff like 2 years ago, I wouldn't be here now with you, EB, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy that you invited me. So I think good actions leads to good results. So if people, have some questions, I will try to answer just, for the sake of, helping the people to understand project management better. As
Uh,
long as I can
Excellent.
answer that, because I don't
Yeah.
know everything, as no one does.
Well, even if you don't know an answer, you know who does, right? I mean, that's kind of the nature of resources and networking. I can't imagine there's too many questions about the PM world that you wouldn't have a good response to. But thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, and best wishes to you in your future. And look forward to seeing all the great things coming out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye.
All right, my friends, that was Gabriella, all the way from Lithuania, all the way from the PMBOK 8th development team. Just an exciting conversation. I hope you gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom from her remarks. I think it was just great. And feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn, follow her for more updates and just, more insights, as she will probably be on a lot more podcasts in the near future, and just explaining her experience with the development team and the journey of the PMBOK 8th edition. Let's keep fighting a good fight. Stay strong, stay resilient. And until next time, EB out here.